Great.
Let me know when, oh, it says we are live.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so firstly, thanks everyone for joining. I know that this can be such a confusing period when you're applying to drama school, so I hope that this presentation / my talking will help in any way possible. The way I'll structure this chat today is I'll go over like a checklist of materials that's generally required by most schools. Again, and I'll keep repeating this, that every school has its own specific requirements. You want to be really careful in like what their requirements are. So I'll go over the application materials. I'll go over some audition do's and don'ts that really help bring your authentic self into the room. And some other general tips for admission processes and once you graduate school, of like how to navigate this film theater industry in the US. Even though I'm talking about schools specifically in the US, a lot of this information will be similar for drama schools in general, whether it's in the US or Europe, UK, anything. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat as they come up, just so you don't forget by the end, and I'll get to it at the end of the session. Okay, let's begin. So starting with the application materials, depending on if you're applying for a master's program or a bachelor degree, they'll ask for your education transcripts, either of your high school or of your undergraduate if you've done an undergraduate degree, or both. They might ask for both the transcripts, so make sure you get that. They'll ask for your Toefl test score. Toefl is, especially when you're an international student, it's an exam to prove your English proficiency. But if your education has occurred in English, like in English language, you can email the school administration to be like, hey, my education was in English. That is my primary language. Do you still require a Toefl score? Because Toefl exams are quite expensive. So if you can get away without having to pay for that, that would be amazing. The third thing is recommendation letters. Schools will generally ask from like 3 to 5 recommendation letters. You want to make sure you have a good mix of it. So you get some letters from your teachers. If possible, get some letters from professional folks you've worked with, like a director or a producer or a well-known co-actor. Make sure that the people you're getting these letters from know you and your work very intimately. It's not some like random person who doesn't know who you are. You want to make sure, like, you will be writing these letters and they will just be signing off on it. So you want to make sure that you highlight your unique strengths and any challenges that you overcame. Like say you did some play or some film, short film, anything, what was a challenge that you overcame in a way, or like what was something unique that you brought to the room? So don't write generic things. The fourth thing is your resume. You want to have a mix of your educational and professional experiences. So you'll probably put your school productions that you've done, your aggregate that you scored in your undergrad or in your high school, include any professional experiences, include any awards you may have won, awards, scholarships, anything that you can highlight and put in a bullet format, do it. The next thing is headshot. You do not have to go to a professional photographer for this. Just make sure it's a clean picture, like from the top of your head to your middle chest. That's good enough, but just make sure that, it's not you in a park with like 10 trees behind you. Like the framing needs to be tight. So don't have like other objects in your background. It does not have to be a professional picture. The next one is your application fees. Again, every school will have its own different fees. Like they might charge you $15, they might charge you $125. And they take it in like various formats, like wire transfer or money order, cash, check. So again, be very careful of like how they're accepting these application fees. Your next point with it, and also the next point is the monologues. So you submit all your application materials and then you pick an audition date. On average, schools will ask you to prepare 2 monologues, one classical, one contemporary, and contrasting monologues. I'll go into that in a bit. And an a cappella song. A cappella is just you're singing without any musical accompaniment. So don't bring an instrument, don't play some music track, just sing. 16 bars is generally an average. Some schools may ask you to prepare 4 monologues, 2 classical, 2 contemporary. So again, read the requirements for every school individually. And the last part of this application process is the statement of purpose essay, the SOP. There's another slide for this because your essay is one of the most important elements of your application. They pay a lot of attention to it. They read it very rigorously. So I'll cover that on another slide, but just flagging that every school, again, will have their own requirement for the text format, which is really weird, I think, but like they'll be very specific of like, use this text font, use this text size, this spacing, this line, and the word count is very important. So I'll go into that on another slide. So this is like, you can take a screenshot of this. Yes, that's what I wanted to say, because all my slides are very dense and you may not be able to like remember all of it. So just take a screenshot. But this is in general, like an application checklist, let's call it. Let's go into audition do's and don'ts. So let's cover the do's first. Before you get into the room, you want to make sure that you do your research with some plays and playwrights that inspire you, that you really like, whether they're classical, contemporary, but have like, a rough outline of an answer of like, why do you like this playwright? Why do you like this play? What does it bring out in you? Prepare like a rough outline to questions, very basic questions like, if the auditioner asks you of like, why should we select you in this program? Or why are you applying to this school? Or why are you an actor? Why have you picked this career? Because like sometimes they will ask you some general questions like that. And then, you don't want to just be frozen like, I don't know, I like to act, have some like good answers prepared. Also, on the other hand, prepare some questions to ask the auditioner. This doesn't always happen, but sometimes at the end of your monologues, they'll be like, okay, great. Do you have any questions for us? And it's okay if you don't, but it would be nice. This is an opportunity for you to ask some specific questions about their program or about the teachers that work there or anything else that comes into your head. So just, flag those for yourself. Now we get into the audition room. Make sure you arrive at least 45 to 60 minutes before your audition. I cannot emphasize this enough. Once you're there, you'll see like 50, 100 students like warming up, doing vocal exercises, and it can be very overwhelming. Sometimes there's a long queue to check in for your audition, so you don't want to get frazzled and then like be thrown into the room to do your audition. So arrive well in time, carry all your application materials. Generally, they'll ask you to bring your headshot resume. There may be the fees that they've asked for. I think a good rule of thumb is bring 2 copies of your headshot and resume. Sometimes you have to give one at the check-in. Sometimes the auditioner will ask for it. So, better to be safe. Yes. So also arriving 45 to 60 minutes beforehand will give you time to warm up. It's great if you bring earplugs or music, whatever helps you ground yourself. Because like I said, the energy is just super nervous. Everyone is warming up around you and it can be very distracting. So go find a corner, go stretch, meditate, whatever it is you need to kind of bring yourself into, that headspace. Next point is wear comfortable and neutral clothes. Do not show up in costumes. Don't wear a princess gown. Don't wear a king cape, a crown, none of that, no costumes. Wear some clothing that's neutral that you could wear for multiple characters. Same for props. Do not bring props. I said carry your headshot resume. Yes, this is really important because once it's your audition slot and they said you can go into the room, say hi, hello, all of that. Don't shake their hands. I think I covered that in the next slide, but generally this audition season happens around flu season time. So everyone's kind of sniffling and coughing and auditioners refrain from shaking your hands. So, you don't want to walk into the room like, hi, my name's Anula. And they're like, you don't want to start off on that awkward foot. If they extend their hand for a handshake, then that's up to you. But just show up in a room, be kind, be courteous, be enterprising, and take the time you need. They're not going to talk to you before your monologue starts. Literally, you will walk into the room, they'll be like, hi, Anula, great. And they just sit. So don't feel rushed to like begin your monologue immediately. Take a second if you want, like take a couple of breaths or turn away from them, do whatever it takes to center you, even if you're taking like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it is, take the time you need to begin. If after you've performed your monologue, they give you a note or a direction of like, hey, could you try this differently? Or could you do this physically? Or could you do this emotionally? Whatever, they give you some note or direction and you don't understand it. Don't rush into like performing the note. Ask them clarifying questions. That is absolutely okay. Don't feel like, oh, you're taking up time or anything. No, be really clear on what they're telling you and then do it. Last thing in this is speak in your natural idiolect. No matter what your accent is, speak in that accent because they want to know who is this person who's coming to our school. If you're really good with accents and if you want to kind of show your range in that sense, you can do one monologue with an accent, but it's not necessary. Like, it's not that, because you're applying to a school in the US, you have to speak with an American accent. So don't fall for that trap, because if your accent isn't really strong, it's going to make you uncomfortable. They won't really know who this person is. So speak in your natural idiolect. That is all the points over here. Again, take a screenshot if you would like, because there's a lot of different points, and I will move on in 2 seconds. 1 second, moving on. Great, now we're covering audition don'ts. I said this first one already, don't carry any props at all. Rule of thumb, if it's a prop that can fit in your pocket or on your body, like a necklace or a ring, that's okay. But don't show up with like a football, don't show up with a sword or none of that. Because your monologues are generally like a minute, minute and a half, sometimes 2 minutes. Again, every school has their own different requirements, but it's generally within the first 30 seconds that the auditioner knows if they're interested in seeing more of your work. And if in those 30 seconds, you're just kind of like occupied with your props and costumes, it's not going to give a good impression. So carry no props. Yes, this is a big don't, because I've sat in some audition rooms and this gets very awkward if you're performing your monologue to the auditioner. Don't look at them. They are not your scene partner in this situation. So find a point on the wall that's near them. So like if your auditioner is sitting over here, find a point over here so that they can see your face. Don't do the monologue like this, where they can only see like half your face. So don't look at the auditioner, find a target on the wall near them. The other point is the proximity to the auditioner. Like I've seen some people, like they come right up to the table where the faculty is sitting, and then they perform their monologue like right here, which is no good. So, and you also don't want to be away in some corner. So like, just make sure you have a good amount of distance between you and the auditioner. I said, don't initiate a handshake unless they do. They don't want to make physical contact with you. Sometimes at the end of your monologue, they may want to shake your hands or they may want to hug you. Then it's up to you if you want to engage in that. This, again, cannot emphasize this enough. Do not exceed your time limit. It happens really often where like someone will be in it, they're like crying and they're feeling it and they're doing the monologue, and then the auditioner is like, okay, that's time, and that becomes really awkward. And then you're thinking like, oh, I didn't even get to the best part. So instead, find your monologue. Once you're rehearsing it, time it out. If you feel like you need to trim a line or two, cut it, it's fine. Or if you feel like you need to add a line or two, not your own, but from the play, do it. But like adjust the monologue as you need to fit the time limit. Do not exceed it. The next point is, say you've started your monologue. Of course, you're going to be very nervous. That's part of it. And like halfway through, you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not feeling this. I want to restart it. Don't do that. As hard as it may be, do not ask to restart your monologue. Like they don't have time for that. Only if you like, say you start your monologue and like 2 lines in, you like completely forget your lines and you're just standing there like, I have completely forgotten everything, then fine, because you have no option. Because like, what are you going to say if you've forgotten everything? Only then be like, I'm sorry, I'm going to restart, and just take the time you need and begin again. But don't, just because you're not feeling it or you feel like it could be better, do not ask to restart, redo your monologue. They'll immediately just be like, no. Also a good, and I haven't put it in this, but a good point is bring a printout of your monologue to your audition, because sometimes you get so nervous that you kind of like forget the lines. Like they'll be like, okay, who's next? Anula, great, you can go in. And as you walk in, you're like, I've completely forgotten all my lines. So instead you can have a sheet of paper that has the text that you're going to be performing, and then just keep it to the side in the room. In case you forget it, you can always go look at it. So carry a printout of your monologue. And the last point is, it's easier said than done, but when you walk into the room, it's very easy to fall into this trap of like, I'm going to blow their minds, or like, I am so unique, or like, I'm going to really impress them or show off in a way. And they can read that energy from the second you walk into the room. So don't try to lead with this energy of like, I'm going to impress you, or I'm going to like show off all these cool things I can do. No, instead focus on your character, focus on the given circumstances of your character, and letting yourself have an actual experience as the character. Great. Moving on to the next one. If any questions are coming up regards to auditions or the application materials that I covered, then just drop it in the chat and I'll check it at the end. Great. Now we're getting into the monologues. Like I said, on average, they'll ask you 2 monologues, classical, contemporary, and contrasting monologues. Contrasting essentially means that they're of different genres. So you can pick one that's comedic and then pick one that's dramatic. You don't want to pick both comedic or both dramatic. Make sure that the type of character that you're picking for your monologue, they're different. So if you're classical and contemporary, in both of them, you're a king who's very powerful or very confident. You're not really showing a lot of range. So instead, pick one where the character personalities are very different, the characters' circumstances are very different, what their goal is in the play is very different. And keep it comedic and dramatic. Yes, because they're asking for classical and contemporary, be really sure that the monologues you're picking are actually classical and contemporary. And like the general understanding is that up to the end of 19th century is considered classical. So like Shakespeare, Greeks, Molière, George Bernard Shaw, they're all classical texts. Contemporary starts from Chekhov. So like early 20th century, Chekhov onward. So Chekhov, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, any contemporary playwrights to this day, they're all included in contemporary. Make sure that your monologues are very, different in that sense. You don't have to have an understanding of Shakespeare. Like if you know how to scan the text, if you're familiar with text scansion, great. But if you don't stress about it. Just find a monologue that, and I know this is the next point, but find a monologue that reflects your personality the best. So if you're a 25-year-old, don't pick a monologue where the character is 60 years old. Even if you can do them really well, don't pick a character that's so different from you. That doesn't apply the same for gender though. Like if you're a woman or a female identifying person and you want to pick a Romeo's monologue, go for it. There's no restriction when it comes to that. But essentially, you want to pick a monologue that, and I've written it there, that you can literally roll out of bed and perform. It shouldn't be a monologue that's a challenge for you, that's something that you have to work up into. Like if you have a hard time accessing your vulnerable side or to cry, and the monologue requires you to cry, and if you have a hard time doing that, don't pick it. Like you should, because again, like I said, there's so much nervous energy before you go in. Don't pick something that's difficult for you to do on any given day. So it should come very naturally to you. It should reflect your personality the best. Yes, let me see if I something. No. Again, stick to the time limit of the monologue. That is very, very important. And there's no shortcut in finding which piece to select. So like Google is your best friend over here. Literally search classical playwrights, contemporary playwrights. See if there's any name of a person that you've heard of or that you want to check. Then look at that playwright, be like, okay, what plays has this playwright written? Then read the summaries of the play. See if the character that you're interested in is close to you in terms of age, in terms of personality type, and then read the whole play and find a monologue from that. But there's no shortcut to this. You just have to read a whole bunch of plays to find a really good monologue. And it takes a couple of months. So if your audition is next month, you should have already started work on this. I'm not trying to scare anyone, sorry. Next thing, we're going to statement of purpose, your SOP essay. Like I said, it's one of the most important elements of your application. So again, take a screenshot of this. These are questions from I'd applied to, I think about 9 schools, and these were all questions that were listed on their website. Again, be mindful of what their text format is, because sometimes the spacing, font, style is different for different programs. I won't read through all these points, please screenshot it, but the basic essence of this essay is you don't want to just recap what is on your resume, because your resume is a separate document that you're submitting. So you don't want to just list everything that is on your resume in an essay form. Instead, you want to go into details of how that specific experience changed you as a person or challenged you as an artist, or what you did with it. You want to highlight all, your best qualities, your unique qualities. And the questions range from like, how did you get into acting? Why are you an actor? What do you want to do with this career? To why are you selecting an MFA at this point in your life? All these questions require a lot of thought. You can't give very simple general answers of like, oh, I like the school, so I want to like apply to it, or like I want to get famous and I want to get popular after that. Like that's not going to help you at all. So they'll ask you like, why are you selecting an MFA? Why are you selecting this program? Why do you want to go to this program? How do you think this program is going to help you get what you want? So again, writing this essay, you want to tailor it specifically to every program that you're applying to, which requires you to do a lot of research on the individual program. See what sort of classes they're offering, or what sort of teachers work there, or what sort of platforms they have. And then use that in your essay of like, I see that, this person works there, or like, these are the types of classes you do. I couldn't find these at other programs, and that's why I'm interested. Highlight your qualities. Yeah, don't just list your experiences, expand on it. So this essay is essentially just going to let them know who you are as a person. It doesn't have to only be related to acting. If as an individual, you faced some like serious, difficulty in life, like you lost someone, or you had some traumatic experience, or something that like shaped you as a person, and if you feel like that's important for someone to know, or that you're comfortable sharing that with someone, do it. You can write about it, of like how like this happened to me when I was like so and so age, and because of this I got into this field, or whatever it is. It can be but let it be as personal as possible, because they'll read your resume, which is just all your credits, your work credits, and then they see your audition later, but this kind of gives them an essence of who you are as a person. And most importantly, because every program, they create an ensemble. So when you audition for the year, auditioners are trying to create an ensemble of like 15 actors, or whatever the class strength is. So they would want to see how your personality, who this person is, what your background is, whether that's like your cultural background, your national background, whatever it is, how is that going to mix in with the ensemble of the whole class? So don't be generic, be very specific to your life, to your challenges, to your strengths. And again, this essay, during my admission time, I think I took about 3 months writing my essay, because little by little things come to you, you figure out how to write it. It's always a good idea to let someone proofread it, because you don't want silly grammatical errors in it. And really give it some good thought. Like, I think it's a beautiful opportunity to let people know who you are as a person, and what your drive is as an artist, and that can be so specific to you. And do the research on the programs, because it's not like, oh, this program has a big name, so I want to get admission. Please take a screenshot of this page as well. And let me just see. Great. Going into general admission tips, this is something I learned after I started my program, but you can leverage your acceptances at different schools. So say you've auditioned to 5 schools and say you've got callbacks at 3 of them. And then say you get accepted at one of them. Say you've got an acceptance at one school, but you're really interested in another school. Let that school know, whoever your point person is, whoever the admission administrator person is that you're in contact with for auditions, let them know that, hey, I got accepted at this school and I'm very excited and they're offering me 50% scholarship, but I really want to go to your school. So can we negotiate the scholarship? Because that does happen. At my experience, I got accepted at one school and this other school was like really interested in having me. I don't know why, maybe because I was Indian and they like wanted more Indian students. I don't know, doesn't matter. But they asked me, they're like, oh, how much scholarship are they giving you? Or like, what financial aid package are they giving you? And like, maybe we could like, top that. So it can feel a little icky that, you're kind of like trying to leverage your acceptance, but a lot of times we need some sort of financial assistance. So if you're getting accepted or callbacks at a particular institution, you can let the other schools know that and kind of like better your position there. Does that make sense? I don't know, I'm not able to see everyone, but great. For this purpose, you want to note down, generally there'll be some person from the school that you're in contact with for the admission process. So it's generally someone from the like admissions team or like the administration team. Make sure you have some sort of contact information for them. Sometimes at the end of your auditions, if the auditioner really likes you, like sometimes this is not, this isn't a marker for like, oh, you did really well, but sometimes the auditioner will share their personal email or phone number, which is great because then you can ask them very specific questions and then you can let them directly know that, hey, I got accepted at this school, but I really want to go here, but I'm not getting as much financial aid with your program. So like, what can we do? So make sure that you have contact emails, phone numbers for people at different schools. When you're in the audition process, it's always a good idea to do the research on who the alums are that have graduated from that program, especially if there's one that like matches your ethnic, racial identity. It's a great idea to reach out to them. Most often than not, they will revert. I feel like I didn't do this because I didn't know that that's something that you can do. But if there's specific questions you want to ask of like, hey, I'm Indian, or like, hey, I'm from Argentina, and like, I don't know if there are more people at this program, or like, how did the teachers deal with you, and things like that. So contact the school alums. If you're in the US auditioning, visit the school campus, because a lot of times, like, the program looks great on their website, or their teachers are great, whatever, but the school is just a big block. There's no campus per se, so there's nowhere for you to like go around. Or sometimes the school campus is like really big and they have fields and they have like different areas which you really may like. So remember, you're going to be spending the next 3 to 4 years at this school, so you kind of want to make sure that you like the area, you like the environment. Is it in the city? Is it in the middle of the city, or is it in like some small remote town? And how much does that matter to you? So if possible, visit the school campus. And if you're not in the US at that time, try to like request like a video tour. Like they do that as well during admission times. They'll give you a video tour of the classes, of the campus. Going back a little to the audition period, only few schools will let you submit a video audition or like do the audition over Zoom, which is great when you're not able to go to the US to audition. But unfortunately, if you can get yourself to the US to apply to schools, do that, because it does make a difference seeing you in person. They're more, auditioners are generally more inclined to giving you notes, to working with you in the room when you're in person, as opposed to you just send a video. So it's easier to get rejected when you just submit a video or like you do it over Zoom. But I understand that that's not possible every time. So, again, stay in touch, ask many questions, see the place as much as possible. During your admission times, say you've got a callback or say you've got an acceptance, that is the time to contact the school and ask about their financial aid, ask about their scholarships. They a lot of times have different quotas for like different racial, national identities. So really do that research, because you may get accepted at 2 schools that you like equally, and one of them is essentially paying for you to go there and the other one is offering you no financial aid. And you may not find this out till you accept the admission. So you don't want to accept the admission till you know what you're getting into. So ask about their financial aid. Do your research and also ask questions about what the program specializes in. Some schools are very heavy in like movement-based training. So like you have a lot of movement classes in all your 2, 3, 4 years. Or, they have a very strong singing program. Or in some schools like Juilliard, they mix the graduate and undergraduate students for like a couple of the classes. If that's okay with you, if it doesn't work for you, if you want to focus more on singing, find a program that has a very strong singing program, like very strong singing teachers. So really, again, be very specific on like what these programs offer and like why exactly you want to go in for that. And the last one is see, of course, when you're looking at like which school to apply to, hopefully you're doing the research in terms of like, if you're interested in a specific school of thought, like, Meisner or method or a mix of it, or it's a conservatory, whatever it is, I'm hoping everyone's doing their research on like what sort of program they want to get into. But on a more practical level, also research what sort of platform the school has to help connect you to industry professionals. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to be investing so much time and money to go study abroad, whether it's in the US or UK, you want to make sure that there is something to help you carry on after that, so that you don't just like go to this fantastic program and then after that, it's like, now what? What do I do? I don't know how to audition. I don't know where to go. Most schools, like in the US, like schools like Yale, Juilliard, NYU, Brown, they have what's called a showcase in their final year, where you get to perform a couple of scenes, and the school invites industry professionals like casting directors, managers, agents, who come watch you do these scenes, and then you have meetings with them, and hopefully, you get signed with at least a manager or an agent. And I'll get into managers, agents on a different slide. But check in if the school has a showcase platform, or if they have classes with industry professionals, anything that will connect you with the world outside school, because otherwise it can be very isolating. You graduate from the program and then you really don't know where to get auditions. And I'll speak from my specific experience. I'm from India, and in India, you can directly get in touch with casting directors, like on their social media or like at their offices. You can directly audition with them. But in the US, it doesn't work like that. In the US, you need to have a middleman, like you need to have someone who gets you these auditions, and that someone is your manager or your agent. So if you don't have a manager or agent, it can be slightly more challenging to have access to these auditions. And unfortunately, it's a very like, it can be a very like cutthroat, icky, business oriented field, where if a casting director sees that, you don't have any reps, if you don't have any representation, they may not even like view your audition, because it's very like, superficial. I don't know if that's the right word. It helps to have reps. There are other ways you can access auditions. I'll get into that on another slide. But yes, this is a huge point of like, check which school has a showcase or has some sort of classes or platforms to connect you with managers, agents, casting directors. Great. Take a screenshot. Again, I'm going on to the next one. And I'm going, great. Okay, this is again a very dense slide, but you've come to the US, or I'm going to talk only about the US, but you've come to the US on your student visa, and your student visa is valid only for the duration of your course plus 1 year. So when you're on your student visa F1, you have 2 elements to that. One is your CPT, your CPT and your OPT. CPT is, if I'm remembering the full form correctly, co-curricular practical training, and your OPT is your optional practical training. CPT is they're both for 12 months each, 12 months of work. So your CPT is generally used when you're in school. So you're in an acting program, and you're generally assigned work studies that the school will assign you of like, hey, you're going to be working backstage, you're going to be ushering this show, you're going to be helping build the props or like help with the costumes or whatever it may be. That is like assigned work study. That's included in your CPT. So you're earning, you're working while you're in your program, 12 months of that. Then you have your OPT, your optional practical training, which is again 12 months of work time that you can use while you're in school, but you can save up those 12 months and use it as one solid year after you graduate. So your OPT is not used for school related work. It is used for professional outside the school work. So say you're in a program and your summer vacation hits and you have 3 months off of school and you audition for some professional theater in New York and you book the gig. Awesome, congrats. That's going to eat into your OPT. So if that play is happening for 2 months, you can legally do it. It's all great. You fill in the paperwork, you can legally do it. But then off your 12 months of OPT, you've now lost 2 months. So if you keep using your OPT, while you're in school, by the time you graduate, you're not going to have any OPT time left. And so there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Like, you always have to be on the lookout for auditions. And if you get a really good job, take it by all means. The only advantage is, like I said, if you save up those OPT months, you can use it as a solid year after your graduation. So you finish your program, you're still on your OPT, which is part of your student visa, which buys you 1 extra year to be in the country, to audition, to legally work before you have to apply for your artist visa, which is a whole other thing. So use your OPT wisely, either save it up or use it, during your breaks. Yeah, oh yes, these are like general tips for like once you've kind of finished your program. Don't send unsolicited emails to agents, managers of like, hey, like I really like your agency company, will you represent me? Those generally won't get you far. Instead, you can email them an invite. So say you're doing a play in your school, you're in your final year, you've got a production where you have a leading role that you feel like really showcases your talent. You can send an email to an agency or a manager that you really like, and invite them to come watch you. They're more likely, susceptible to agreeing to that, as opposed to just because they get like hundreds of emails of like, hey, will you represent me? And they're just like, no. If you send an email to an agent manager, make sure it is very specific, make sure it's genuine. Don't let it be a very generic, superficial email. And again, do your research on like what sort of an agency is this, what sort of a management company this is. And you can do that through IMDb Pro, which I'll get into, but IMDb Pro is essentially where you can look up actors and actresses that you really like, see who they're represented by, go on that company, see what sort of clients they have. You want to kind of make sure that like the agency or the management company you're not applying to, but like that you're reaching out to, that they don't have hundreds of other actors who look exactly like you. Like if one specific agent, for me, if one specific agent already has 10 female Indian actors, I'm not going to reach out to him because like, how is that agent then specifically catering to my needs when he has 10 other Indian women on his roster? So again, send email invites to agents and managers to come watch you in shows. I've said it there, work speaks louder than words, cannot emphasize that enough. A general good idea after you graduate or while you're still in program is to research for grants. So like you get a grant when you're working on a specific project. Say that you're a multi-hyphenated artist and you like to direct or you like to design, and so you've like written your own play and you want to produce that play. You can look at different institutions and theaters and they'll offer a lot of these grants. I don't know of any specific institutions that I can recommend, but it's again something that you can find online. So grants are for specific projects. Fellowships are for general funding. Like you as an artist, you as an international immigrant artist living in the US, need financial help to sustain your lifestyle, to pay your bills, to pay your rent, you can look for fellowships. Like the point of a fellowship is literally they will give you funding to help with your life. So it doesn't have to be related to a specific project. Or like mentorship programs. And you can find information on grants, fellowships, mentorship programs by essentially following a bunch of like different theaters, educational institutions, organizations, your embassies. That's generally where these grants and fellowships come from. So, kind of put your feelers, put your antennas out there. Sign up for these email lists and newsletters with different theaters and organizations, because like that's generally where you get 90% of the information. You sign up for like, any website, any institution, and you keep getting emails from them every month. And then one day you see that they're like taking applications for a grant. So do that. While you're in the program, while you're in drama school, or like after you graduate, you're on that 1-year OPT period, try getting as much work as possible. And again, that's easier said than done. And, hopefully you'll be auditioning for projects and hopefully you will book projects. But if not, you have to be enterprising in the sense of like find collaborators, organize readings, Zoom readings, workshops, plays, do whatever it takes to like build credits, because that's going to help you when you have to apply for your artist visa, to show that, hey, in this last year, I've worked on so-and-so play and so-and-so reading. And then you have to get letters from people, recommendation letters from like directors, producers, all of that. So like once you graduate, you can't afford to just sit on your butt and, be like, oh, I'm auditioning, I'll book a job. No, like you have to be on it and keep trying to create your work. Now, if you don't get an agent or a manager, there are still other platforms that you do get access to auditions, and I've listed them here. Please take a screenshot. So there's a website called Backstage, and most of these do require, like annual subscription fees, but they're worth it. Like Backstage, most like important one, it's used by everyone. And that's a platform where essentially you can like literally do research of like 25-year-old female Indian actor, and they'll just give you all the listings of like, this is a film, this is a short film, this is for an extra, this is for a lead, this is for a play, off Broadway, regional theater, Broadway, anything, like literally all acting opportunities are listed on Backstage. So if you don't have an agent manager, invest in that $100 subscription fee, and then every day just go on it, see if there's new auditions, keep reaching out to as many institutions as possible. Casting Networks is another website, similar to Backstage. It'll give you a lot of like audition breakdowns. It's free if you have an agent, because you have to like link your agency or management to that. If you don't have an agent manager, then again, you pay a certain amount to have an account. Actors Access is another important website where it's like I've said, like it's free to upload your profile, but it's very rare that like people will contact you like that. So again, it might be worth investing in the premium services so that you can start contacting these casting calls that they're putting up. And Playbill is another one where they'll just list all the jobs, like a range of it, from like an extra is needed in this film to it's a lead role, we're casting for that, it's theater, it's film, everything. So these are, some of your like major publications that you should subscribe to, especially if you don't have an agent or manager. And even if you do have an agent or manager, they don't have eyes everywhere. So it is a good idea to like stay at least on Backstage, so that you're able to like Backstage and Playbill, so that you're able to like find auditions for yourself. I touched on this, but create an IMDb Pro account. IMDb Pro also charges, I think it's like $125 a year. But it's useful because you get a lot of information on different agencies, casting directors, management companies, producers, production houses, where they're based, what sort of clients they have. That is so important to know what sort of clients are on the roster for this agent who you're having a meeting with. So create an IMDb Pro profile. Create a website. I don't have a website yet, but also like my circumstances are different. A website is a great opportunity to like consolidate all the work you've ever done. If you've done film stuff or there's any theater piece that you've done that was recorded, you can create a reel from it. any commercials you may have done, commercial, film, theater, put it on a reel. Like agents, managers, casting directors love to see reels, because like in like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, they're able to see exactly how you work. So anything that you've ever done in your life, find a way to get videos for it, stitch it together in a reel, and then put it on a website. Any awards you may have won, you can put your resume, you can put your educational background, everything. So a website's like a nice, clean way to kind of just send, so that when you contact an agent, manager, casting director, you can just send them the website, as opposed to writing a long ass email like, I've done this, I've done this. You just send them the website, and that's, you know, it's alluring in that sense. I touched on this as well, that, you know, don't just wait to get auditions, instead find ways to collaborate. Like if you're going through a drama program, then you have so many collaborators, writers, directors, designers, actors. So create work with them, create work with people who are American. They may know what theater that you can perform this at, things like that. So collaborate as much as possible. And lastly, follow casting directors, agencies, management companies on social media. Like it's surprising how many times casting calls are posted on social media. So any casting directors, producers, just follow them on social media. You have nothing to lose. Instagram specifically, I don't see so much on Facebook anymore. You may get an audition call, or, you know, sometimes they have like, sorry, I'm gonna drink some. Sometimes they'll have like a meet and greet, like they might post in some month of like, hey, we're taking new submissions, or like new introduction submissions. That's a great time to like meet new casting directors and folks, but you won't know that if you're not following them. So social media can be your friend in that sense. Okay, dealing with agents and managers. Okay, great. This, let's start with like an understanding of what an agent and a manager will do. Managers are going to help cater to you individually, specifically. They will get you auditions, but they're more so for like, once you start booking a lot of jobs, you need someone to like coordinate your shoot schedules. You need someone to like do the negotiation of like what fees you're charging, or like what dates work. Or, you know, you need a pay raise for this thing, that your manager is going to do. So they kind of talk on behalf of you, so that you don't have to do that business talk, and you can kind of just go and act. They will also get you auditions, but not as much as an agency will. An agency, like the sole point of them is to get you as many auditions as possible. And, you know, the fact of it is that 90% of the auditions you get will not fit your type, your like demographic type. But that's okay, because that's how you're being introduced to like hundreds and hundreds of casting directors. So even if you may not be suited for the part you're auditioning for, it may be a new casting director that you're sending a tape to. So do it and give it your best, because there may be another project that this casting director remembers. They're like, oh yeah, I saw this person's tape. They weren't like fit for that role, but I think they'll be really good here. And so like, I'm going to submit them for this. So it, you know, somebody had explained to me this way, that agencies, like your agents, will literally like throw a bowl of spaghetti on the wall. Like they'll just throw it on the wall and see what sticks. So you're getting like several auditions. Most of them may not even fit you, but it's a great way to like meet new casting directors and agents and stuff. Managers will handpick which auditions to send you. So they'll be more specific and reserved and narrow in what auditions they're sending you. At the end of the day, whether you get an agent, manager, it's fine, it's great, because they're going to get you the auditions. If you can get both, great. But remember, once you book a job, you're going to be paying both of them commission. In the US and in India, actually, it's a 10% commission fee is standard. So if you have an agent and manager and you book a film, you're going to have to pay both of them 10% each of your earnings. So that is the difference between agents and managers, what they do. Like I said before, you want to research what sort of clients they have. Every agent, every manager has a roster that you can see on IMDb Pro of like, what clients are they specifically handling if they have a lot of clients who, again, fit your demographic type, it may not be smart to go with them. And when you take meetings with agents, managers, or like when you're doing your research, see how well connected they are to producers, to directors. Does your agent manager have direct relationships with casting directors or with production companies in a way that they would be able to get you into the rooms? They would be able to set meetings up for you with these casting directors, with these directors. So you want to see how much pull these agents and managers have, whether it's their company in general or the person individually. Another thing to check is if they're bicoastal. Bicoastal meaning, do they work in LA and New York? Because when it's a New York-based agency, they're most likely to be more inclined towards theater, which is great. And they may send you film auditions, but their connections, their industry connections may be more based in theater. Nothing wrong with that. It's just what are you leaning towards? If you pick an agency or management company that's based in LA, they most likely are not looking at theater in New York or regional theater otherwise. But if you find a company that's bicoastal, meaning that they have their offices in LA and New York, then you're going to get access to film and theater auditions in LA, in New York. So that's, the most ideal scenario. You just want to see, it comes down to like, how much of a reach does that company have? Do they deal with film and theater? I covered that. Will they sponsor your visa? Now, this has pros and cons to it. Not all agencies, management companies will, in fact, most of them will not sponsor your visa. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of agencies, managements will turn you down once they find out that you're on a student visa or you're on an O1, which is your artist visa. Basically, they want people who are citizens and who have green cards. And so there is a lot of discrimination in that sense, even if they will not admit to it. And it's not technically illegal, but like what does one do about this? And I don't have an answer for that yet, unfortunately. But some agencies and management companies will sponsor your visa. And sponsoring your visa doesn't mean that they pay for you or anything. It just means that they're like signing off on the paperwork to the government. But the only catch with this is, say you got an agency, they're great, they're sponsoring your visa, great. If they decide you get your visa, awesome. It's your O1 visa is valid for 3 years. But say after 1 year, your agency decides to drop you. They're like, we don't want to work with this actor anymore. Your visa is immediately like nullified. So you kind of get stuck. Then you're kind of like, you have to make sure that you stick with that agency and that they don't drop you. And that, of course, is not in your control. So that is a huge, huge catch, that if your agency is sponsoring your visa and if they drop you, then you're kind of stuck. So instead, find an independent person to sponsor your visa. And, I can go into this later in the question stuff, because the artist visa application is a whole other thing. But essentially, you want to find an employer to sponsor your visa, an employer who has an LLC, who has a company, a registered company that is in the field that you're applying for. So they either have a film company or a theater company, whatever. They're an employer who will sponsor your visa, as opposed to your agency or management doing that for you. 10% commission is standard. Like I said, some companies will ask for 15%. Don't be thrown off by that. It happens, but very, very rarely. And in that circumstance, like I would ask them, why? Like if 10% commission is standard, then why are you charging 15%? Like, are they getting you any special advantages? Are they setting up some very cool meetings? Are they guaranteeing anything? If they are, that's a little wary, because you can't guarantee anything in this field. And lastly, are they enthusiastic and supportive of you and your vision as an artist? When you do take these meetings with agents and managers, like, you want to be really clear on what it is that you want to do. If you want to really do film and theater, but your agency or management company only handles film, then either you make peace with that or you let them know that, because otherwise you're just going to be very frustrated that, I'm not getting any theater auditions, but I want to do theater auditions. So be very clear in what you're asking them. Especially if you're an international artist, you may want to work back home in your home country. Like for me, that was a question that came up, that like, I'm from India, I want to continue working in India. Does that deter you? You know, because some agencies, management companies, they want you only to stay in the US, you know, like because once you leave the country, you're not really able to audition as much if you're not physically here. And if that agency is like, oh yeah, no, we don't want you to leave the US, like we only want you to stay here, then they're probably not the right fit for you. So any concerns, any anxieties you may have, you want to clear that up with them before you sign with them. Which brings me to the next point, which is signing with them. It is again standard and customary that you don't have a signed agreement with your agency and management. It's what you call a handshake agreement, where you both mutually agree that like you are representing me, and so like on your IMDb Pro, on your Casting Networks profile, they will be listed as your agency and manager, but there's no contract. But that also means that when you book a job, you have to pay them, because if you don't pay them, that's really going to ruin your relationship with them and they'll potentially drop you. Some agencies, management companies will require you to sign a contract, but that can, again, the catch with that is if you get contractually locked in with an agency and management company, and then they're just not getting you auditions, then what the hell do you do? You're not getting any auditions, but now you're stuck with them for the next 2 years. So signing contracts is not really a thing that happens. Like I haven't signed with my agents, managers, but they get me a lot of auditions. And if I book a job, then I pay them commission. And you know, just generally like signing contracts with agents, managers is not a thing that happens. So you have your agents, your talent agents, you have your managers, and you can also have commercial agents who will only get you auditions for like ads, commercials, audio, book auditions, whatever it is, you know. So these are like 3 avenues that you can go through, depending on what your interests are. Like some actors are like very interested in like commercials and ads, you know, so then don't look for a talent agent, look for a commercial agent. And with your talent agent, make sure if they're only handling theater or film or both. That is I think a broad overview. My God, my throat is tired. Your US agents, managers will sometimes get you auditions based in the UK or like based in Europe somewhere, but it happens very rarely. So again, if your broader goal as an artist is to do work in the UK, you want to be involved with like British drama or British series, then probably don't come train in the US, because again, like if you're in the US, like you're trying to build connections and network here. If you want to work in UK productions, go find a school over there, because that school program will give you a strong base in that country. I won't go into this because I feel like that's understood, that again, if you're planning to invest your time, money, energy into applying abroad, then you really want to give thought to like, what is it that you want to do after you get into this program? Do you just want to go to this program to get the training and then return to your home country? Is that worth the investment? Or do you plan to like work in international film, theater, whatever it is, you know, because then that will kind of dictate how the rest of your years continue after graduation. Like, are you then going to apply for an artist visa, which is unfortunately a lot of money goes into that application, a lot of resources go into that application. Are you going to marry? Are you going to do a whole green card situation? Like it's a big life decision to take. And it starts from the time that you apply to drama school. So give yourself enough time throughout the process. Like if you're applying next year, generally like admission deadlines are like, application deadlines are like December, November, January, and then like auditions happen sometime around like January, February. Then start your work right now, start your research right now. That's about it, ladies and gents. That is all the information I have. So I'm going to check on questions that that you may have. If you want me to go back to a slide, if you didn't get to screenshot it, please let me know. If there's any questions I can answer in terms of the artist visa, you know, living in the US after your program's done, or questions about the program itself, or like life in the US. What is it like being international immigrant living in the US? Or anything else related to admissions and applications, please let me know. I'm trying to find the chat. I can't. I'm going to stop this. There we go. Okay. Aha. There we go. Okay. Oh, sorry. Is this like completely blocking the, oh. I'm going to keep this over here. Start in 10 minutes. Yes, yes, yes. A lot of schools, yes. Okay, that's a great question. There are a lot of online auditions happening, especially since COVID happened. And I think I touched on this, that if you're unable to go to the US, online auditions are great. I know a lot of people who went through online auditions, they went through callbacks, they even got accepted. So it does happen. If you are able to be in the US, then in-person audition is preferable because they see you in person, they will talk to you, they will relate to you as a person, give you directions, all of that. But if that's not possible, online auditions, yes. But not all schools do that. Some schools will hold Zoom auditions, some schools will just say, hey, submit a video, which I personally would refrain from doing, because in a video, they can't make any adjustments or anything, so do a Zoom audition at least, don't send a video. Can you please talk about financial aid for international students? This is a very, I get asked this a lot, and it's such a individual case-by-case situation. Most schools will offer some sort of financial aid or scholarship, depending on your situation. And that requires you to essentially, there's a financial aid office. They will ask you to submit a whole bunch of paperwork, whether it's your financial documents. If you are putting yourself through school, they will ask for your financial information, or your parents or guardians or anyone else who is like funding your education. And based on that, they will give you an offer of like, this is the financial aid offer that we could give to you. There isn't really much detail I can give to that, because it depends case by case, depending on your financial background. But there's financial aid and scholarships that you can apply to. Scholarships tend to be more based on quota of like, for international artists, or for like Indian artists, or, Latinx descent, anything like that. There's very like different criteria. So again, this is something that you can do in your research. You can also take loans, which I haven't, so I don't know how that would work if you took a loan from the US government, or is it better to take a loan in your home country and then use that towards your education? But I will say that schools in the US are very, very accommodating and understanding. So if you sit and talk to them that like, this is my financial situation, I don't have any support, my parents can't help me, or my parents aren't there, I don't have guardians, whatever it is, they will personally help you through that. But that's as much information I can give. So I was on financial aid and scholarship through my second, third year. And I decided not to take a loan just because I didn't, it was very daunting and I could get away without taking a loan. So I was like, great. But they will get into your business. They will ask very, very personal, specific questions of like, well, is your dad supporting you? Is your mom supporting you? Are they together? Are they divorced? Then who is supporting you? So it can get a little, too personal in that sense, but they will find a way to help you. And like I said, if you're applying to multiple schools, you can leverage your admission, your acceptance, at different schools. And you will be surprised. Like I had a classmate who got accepted at NYU and at Yale. And she told folks at Yale of like, hey, I got accepted at NYU and they're offering me full scholarship. And so Yale was like, just got accepted at another school. So, don't just apply to one school when you're applying. Like if you're putting in the time and money to applying to schools, apply to a bunch of different schools so that then you can leverage your acceptances. I hope that helps with the financial aid question. Yes, at the end of the panel, from Mumbai, in the final year, I'm doing bachelor in science and professional experience. I would, if somebody doesn't have, the question is that this person is in their final year doing a bachelor's in science, they have no professional experience in theater. Can I still apply for an MFA in acting in the US? For that, then I would ask you, why are you applying to an MFA? An MFA is a professional degree, so they do require you to have some sort of experience, whether you've trained in acting, whether theater, film, you've had some sort of acting training, or some sort of educational training in a performing arts field. Yeah, because a master's of fine arts and MFA in acting is a professional degree, so they're not going to accept someone who has no experience in this. In that case, then I would, suggest that you apply to like a summer intensive, which is like a 3-4 month program, or a bachelor's, or like a diploma, a 1-year diploma. Don't apply for an MFA. An MFA is like, if you're like, that is it, like I am acting, this is what I've chosen as my career, because it's intense, it's a lot of investment. So MFA is
Hey
not
Anula,
like,
can you hear me?
yes, hi.
Yes. Hi. How can I apply? How can I start my experience in acting then?
Okay, I don't know if I can do this, but thanks for your question, but I'm also going to mute you just because I don't want people to start asking questions. Please put it in the chat.
Okay.
I think what you're asking is a very specific question of like, how can you get into acting? And feel free to DM me and I can address that very specific questions, because for this session, I'll stick to more general questions of like the admission process and things like that. So going on to the next one, about the OPT. To start the OPT, you need to find a job first, or it counts the time you spend looking for jobs? No, so your OPT, if say you've saved up your 12 months of OPT and you've finished your program, even if you don't have a job, it's still, your OPT time is still continuing. And then you can look for jobs during that period. So it's not that, your OPT period starts only when you get a job. You graduate, and you have to apply for your OPT, by the way. So like before you graduate, like 2-3 months before you graduate, apply for the OPT so that you get the work card. It's called an EAD. I forget what the full form is, but it's an EAD card, which it's an authorization that lets you do any acting work in film theater. Is there an age limit for the MFA program? No, there isn't. Some schools will require, like in terms of a minimum age limit, some schools will require that you're at least like 6 years out of high school or 3 years out of your undergrad. But there's no like minimum age limit per se. I think the youngest people in our class were like 21, 22 years old, but everyone had experience in acting before. So even if you've just completed your undergrad and you're directly going into an MFA program, but you need to have some experience. And there's no maximum age limit. So like we've had students who are like 30 years old, 35 years old, 37 years old, like there's really no limit on that. It's more so of like, why are you picking an MFA at this point in your career, in your training? So yeah. Would you give some advice to international students who speak another language about the difficulties that come with the program, like accents and difficult plays like Shakespeare, for example? Also, how diverse are the programs? Great. In terms of the diversity of the programs, that is again case by case. Like some schools admit a lot of international students, or like students of different racial, ethnic backgrounds, not just white or black students. Some programs will only admit white students, which they won't admit it, but when you see their, their graduated classes, you see that they're only admitting white students. Then, it's like, do I want to apply here? In terms of accents and speaking different languages, that's a great question. If you're applying to a school in the US, it is understood that you're going to be dealing with the Western canon, which is all in English, whether it's your classical and contemporary plays. All of those plays are going to be done in English, but that doesn't mean that you have to speak with an American accent. Again, if you're coming to train in the US and you intend to work in the US after that, it will be a handy tool if you're able to speak with an American accent, but there are classes for that. Like you do generally have some sort of a speech dialect class in which you can work on that. And why not? If you're an actor and if you're able to speak with like different accents, that's a credit to you. But there is no mandatory requirement of like, you have to only speak in English, you only have to speak with an American accent. It is very challenging, because I remember in my first year, like I had to do plays where my name is Catherine, and I'm speaking with an American accent, and I know nothing about the Midwest in the US. And I was just like, this feels so alienating, and like I feel so fake. And so I kind of set up a lot of meetings with my first year scene study professor, because I was just like, listen, I just can't connect to the work. I don't know if I made the right decision applying and coming here. There's a lot of like identity crisis. There's a lot of imposter syndrome being like, you feel like you fooled everyone and you got admission, and now they're going to find out that you're fake. It's a very real feeling. At Yale, and I'll only speak of that because that's where I went, in the classes below us, we had a lot of students from other countries, from Puerto Rico, from Argentina. So a lot of Spanish speaking folks, and they brought a lot of scenes that they were doing in Spanish. So it really depends on like who your teacher is, how open they are, and how they're able to help you. Not so much when it comes to the school production itself, because again, it will be in English. But there is no accent requirement. I think that's just a more individual journey of like, how do I learn to like navigate, doing these American plays with my Indian accent? And it's really funny that you say like accents and difficult plays like Shakespeare, because I was absolutely not looking forward to doing Shakespeare, because I was just like, man, like I'm never going to do Shakespeare. Well, like, why would I ever get cast in Shakespeare? And like, it's so weird. Like, who talks like this? It's so alienating. And then that turned out to be, the canon that actually connected me most to the work, because guess what? Nobody talks like that. The way Shakespeare used to write, nobody spoke like that even in his time period. So like once you start doing Shakespeare, you and your classmates are suddenly dealing with this very different way of talking. And Shakespeare does not require you to speak with a British accent. So the point of Shakespeare is that it's heightened text. You're dealing with really high stake situations, life and death stakes. So because of the technicality of the language, because of how the scansion works, the point of Shakespeare, the point of that heightened text is to connect you to your emotions. And for me personally, that did happen. So even though I was most resistant to Shakespeare, it's what kind of like, to me in my head, leveled out the playing field with me and all my other classmates. Because like we all had to learn this different way of talking. So it is definitely challenging if you don't find a faculty member or other students in your class that speak your language or are from the country you're from, or like just have a different accent. It's very difficult, but I think it's times like that you remind yourself of like, what is the bigger picture that you're trying to do? There'd be so many times in class where like my teachers would make very American references to like American actors or American playwrights, directors, and I just have to like raise my hand and be like, I'm sorry, I didn't get that, or like I didn't get that reference, or I didn't get that joke. So you kind of have to be that person who's like, I'm sorry, I'm not getting it. But after some time, your teachers, your classmates also kind of get used to that. So in terms of advice, I would say read as many plays as you can, and remind yourself, like if you're going to come, and I know that this isn't, nobody wants to hear this, but it's the truth of it, that if you're deciding to come to the US, people speak English over here. So and the medium of instruction of the teachers in the school is English. So if you're having difficulty with English, like that's something that you have to work on if you're choosing to come over here, and like if you plan to work over here. With accents, like I said, that there will be classes to help you with that. You have to take the effort to like set up additional tutorials with your teachers. Like over your 3 years, like I used to do that with my speech teacher. Like I would set up meetings like once every 2 weeks to go like figure out like, what are these sounds, or like, how can I do this? I was never required to speak with an American accent, but like when we would get cast in productions, that would always be a conversation I would have with the director of like, can I speak in my natural idiolect? Or like, is it important to the play that I speak with an accent? So that's, again, a very like individual journey, and it will be difficult, and you will totally question yourself and like, what the fuck am I doing here? But it's ultimately worth it if this is what you're trying to get into. Do you know how much grades matter when applying to drama schools? I'd say they don't matter at all. Like your acceptance is to put a number on it, your acceptance is like 90%, 95% comes down to your audition, to your monologues that you pick and you perform. The rest, 5%, 10% is on your essay, the statement of purpose essay, your recommendation letters, like what are these professionals saying about you? What is unique about you? What unique stuff will you bring to this program? And like maybe 0.5% to your grades. They don't care. They don't care how smart you are academically. Hope that helps. What are the most, hi Huli, what are the most important things Yale provided you with? Was it worth it for you? Yes, it was absolutely worth it, even though I had some of my toughest times at that school. It provided me with a bunch of tools. Like the reason why I went to that school was because the reason why I decided to apply to drama schools was because I realized that there's just a lot of limitations that I have physically, vocally. I don't have that strength. I had a really hard time connecting to my emotional life. Like I didn't know how to be vulnerable or what that even means, how to perform material that is very emotional or that requires you to cry. So going through school, doing all these different classes like classical, contemporary, Alexander technique, which is so much on your posture and your breath, which also ultimately, like Alexander technique, like I could talk about that for forever, but like the point of that class is that it helps you with your alignment of your spine, so that your breath is able to flow freely, and your breath is your energy. And when your energy is flowing freely, your emotions are flowing freely. It's magical to see, someone perform a monologue, and it's great. And then the teacher goes and will like adjust your spine or like adjust your shoulders, like tuck your butt, whatever it is. And then you do the monologue and it's like, like you see someone like fully transform in front of you, and it's like, it's magical. So I feel like all those classes, like they really pushed me. Like the point of going to a drama school is, if you're happy with the way you're acting, don't go to drama school. If you feel like there's things that you want to work on, go, but also realize that you're going to be challenged in every way. Like you're going to be so resistant and adamant to like stick to the ways you act. And it's really hard to break those habits. Like we all as actors have a default way of acting, a default way of emoting. And that is, people are going to call you out on it, of like, why are you laughing? Like, why do you always laugh in all your scenes? Like, they won't say it like this. But you will be picked on, because the thing about acting is that it's so closely related to who you are as a person, how you look, how you sound, how you behave, that any note that you're given, it's very hard to not take it personally. But know that you're going to have to put in the work to break those habits, and that's how you form new habits. So I think that was the most important thing, was that now I feel like I'm equipped with a bunch of tools, whether it's physical, whether it's vocal. I know how to analyze text properly. Like I didn't even know how to analyze text. I didn't know what it meant for a character to have given circumstances, or what do they want? What is their objective? What is their goal? What is the obstacle? Excuse me. So yeah, so I feel like I just have a bunch of tools now, so that the next time I do get an acting job, I'm like, this will help, this will help, this will help, to like really help you come out of your shell, so that you're not doing the same acting every time, which you're going to get bored of after a certain point. Everything you just said would be nice to know, like the O1. Oh yeah. The O1 application process is like is very lengthy. So I'll like, let me see how much. Oof. Can you DM me and I will go into details of the O1 application process. But essentially there's a lot of like, there's like at least 5, 6, 7 criteria, of which you have to satisfy at least 3 or 4 criteria. These criteria are like, you have a sponsor for your visa, you have recommendation letters from industry experts that you've worked with, you've won some sort of awards, they need to be like national level, international level awards, or you've had a lead role in some production or a lead role in an organization, and that you have work lined up over the next 3 years. So there's a lot of different criteria like this. There's a lot of different fees that go into it. So please DM me on Instagram and I will get back to you, because that's a whole different conversation. Could you talk about just how extensive the resume should be specifically for Yale, and also how important the singing part of the audition process is? Singing part, unless you're applying to a school that's like musical theater where like you need to know how to sing. If you're just applying to like an acting program, drama program, singing is not, it's not going to make or break your audition. It's fine if you're not a singer. I'm not a professional singer and I was shit scared to sing. And my auditioners literally told me, you can sing Happy Birthday for all we care. It doesn't matter what you sing. You could sing Happy Birthday, you could sing Baba Black Sheep, it doesn't matter. They just want to see how open you are to doing something that you're not totally comfortable with. So it's okay if you're not able to hit those notes or whatever it is, but like they just want to see you, you know, like when you sing also, there's like so much personality that comes through. So you're not required to be a professional singer. Don't stress about that, but do have a song prepared. How extensive should your resume be? If you could be more specific about that, because I'm not really sure what you mean, but like I said, list any professional work you've done outside of your school, outside of your undergrad, any short film you did, any commercial ad that you did, play that you did, any plays that you've done in school, if you won any awards, if you got any scholarships, what schools did you go to, list what degrees when you graduated, in your credits, like list where this play was performed, like who produced it, who directed it, what year it was done in. I hope that helps in terms of like how extensive it should be, or like, please like send me a follow-up question. How long is the process of applying for an artist visa? It takes a couple of months. Yeah, again, it's case by case, but like the longer you give it, the better it is. So like once you graduate from a drama school, if you've saved up your OPT, your 12 months of time, I would say start finding a lawyer, start gathering your materials like 3-4 months in, so that you have at least 6 months, if not more, to like work on your application. How much time did you spend preparing for your drama school auditions, and what was your preparation process? I spent, I think, again, about 6 months researching what schools I wanted to apply to, researching what monologues I wanted to pick, working on my statement of purpose essay. Like it took a good couple of months. If you feel like you're going to do this admission process in a month, you're sadly mistaken. What was my preparation process? I think I had a checklist for everything, which helped because I applied to like 8-9 different schools. And so I write, like I'm a visual person with my notes. So like I literally would write what the criteria for all the schools were, what monologues, like preparing answers, like these are the playwrights that I really like or who influenced me, or like coming up with rough answers, like I mentioned, of like, why, if they ask you, like, why should we select you? Why are you an actor? Why are you selecting these programs? So I would like write out rough answers. So it's just a lot of diligent work, honestly. There's no shortcut to it. A bunch of acting experience with films and everything, but I didn't finish my bachelor's. Is that something they'd entertain? Yeah, absolutely. I had friends in my class who didn't have an undergraduate degree. It didn't matter. It comes down to your audition. Yeah, it comes down to your audition essay, recommendation letters. And, you know, if you've done some schooling, but schooling is, your academic side has very little importance. Some schools may be like, no, we need you to have an undergraduate degree, but not all of them. It is not a thing. Would you recommend me some English theater in Mumbai? You can DM me. How much should we talk about our weakness versus our strengths in our SOP? Which ones should we stress the most? And thank you. That's a great question. It's great to like highlight your weaknesses because it also shows how self-aware you are and what specifically you want to work on. So like, yes, highlight your strengths, but also highlight your weakness. I don't think I can say that which we should stress the most. It can be like half and half, but don't like totally put yourself down of like, I suck and like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, no, very specific issues of like, I know I struggle with these things, or like, I tend to do these things, whatever it is, but it's a great idea to include your weaknesses, because like I said, it'll show that you're very self-aware, that you're very present with why you're applying to the school and what you want to work on. So that's a great idea. Can you talk about the letters of recommendation for an Indian actor, how to manage them? I'm not sure what you mean, but you will be writing this recommendation letter yourself. So you say found 3 to 5 people who have agreed to write this recommendation letter. Sometimes they may want to write it themselves, but the general understanding is you write the letter, you submit the draft to them, they'll make any edits. The general format of the recommendation letter is 3 paragraphs. So your first paragraph, you're expanding on who this person is, who's writing your recommendation letter, like a bit about themselves, like are they a teacher, are they an actor, director, some credits about them. Second paragraph is where they'll expand on what did they work on you, what did they work on with you, like how do they know you, and like really like highlighting your qualities of like this is what makes you stand out, or like these are challenges that you overcame, or like what makes you so fucking amazing. And the third paragraph is them essentially saying that like I hope Anula is like accepted into this program because this program will help her build on these specific skills and traits and will help her like will help her like with her craft, will like reach her where she needs to. She will bring this to the school. So that's like the general format, 3 paragraphs. Does letter of recommendation work from a small theater or from a small director? Yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter the scale of how big or well-known this director or theater is, as long as what they're writing about you is what's most important, not their credits. Their credits will matter more when it's an artist visa that you're applying for, but when you're applying to drama schools, doesn't matter the scale of how big or small they are. It's more so of like how important was that experience that they're writing about, and what they're saying about you. So it shouldn't be anything generic. Do not use words like she's an amazing actor, or like, oh, very specific qualities to highlight. Wait, what? Just want to know if you absolutely need to have professional acting experience, as in somewhat recognized film or play. No, you don't need to have done anything recognizable. As long as you do have some acting experience, local theater, regional theater, some short student film, doesn't matter. It will come down, like I said, 90% of the time to your audition and then to your like supporting materials. So you don't need to be a hotshot who's applying to school. Pretty much covered. DM me later. Yes, please DM me if there's any specific questions. Who wrote my letters of recommendation? It was one of my teachers from my undergrad, one of my teachers from this other acting program I did in Mumbai, and one of them was from a director of a short film that I acted in. Great. I just like sped through all those questions. I hope that was helpful. Please DM me if like specific questions come up or like anything I can help with through your admission application process. It's a very tender time, so be careful, take care of yourself, and give yourself time. Like I said, cannot emphasize that enough. Give yourself time to like work on your applications, on your monologues. Find a coach if you want. It's not necessary, but like I think some people prefer to have a third person to like work on their monologues, but like don't overwork it. Stick to your instincts, stick to your gut. Apply to a bunch of different schools, because if you're applying, then you might as well hit a bunch of different schools. Oh, hi, Rudra. Do you have any recommendations for coaches? You can check, shit. Oh my God. Encompass. Encompass in New York is a collective that was started by a couple of artists from Yale, NYU. They do, monologue coaching. I can't think of any names at the moment. I can help you with monologue coaching. DM me, please. I'd be more than happy to. My tongue is dry. Yes, I hope this was helpful. Thank you all for attending. If there are any other messages, please DM me. If there's any slide that you want me to go back to, please let me know and I'll just quickly switch to that so you can screenshot it. And yeah, thank you all for coming. This was great. I'm glad I got to share this information and I hope it was helpful in any way possible. And all the best to anyone applying to any drama school in the US or abroad, wherever else. And yeah.
Thank you all for coming. As a reminder, this is part of Global Forums Theater Festival at Rattlestick Theater. So please check our website, www.rattlestick.org to see all of the other programmings. This panel will be up on our website until June 12th if you need to go back and listen to it. And thank you all. Have a great day.
I'm sorry. I think I'm like, I may mispronounce your name. Thais? Just put in a couple of recommendations for monologue coaching if you're looking for Completely Ridiculous and Compass Collective and Iron Butterfly Studio. So please check them out. Sebastian from Iron Butterfly. Great. That's a second recommendation for Iron Butterfly. Yeah, if there's any resources, please take a quick minute, put any resources, or there's anybody else on this video chat that you feel like you connected with, message them. We are here for each other. And please DM me. I look forward to your messages. And thank you again for coming. This was great.
Okay.